Hey y'all, I'm Erin Haynes. I'm the editor-at-large for the 19th News, a nonprofit newsroom reporting on gender, politics, and policy. I'm also the host of a brand new weekly podcast from the 19th News and Wonder Media Network called The Amendment. Each week, we're bringing you a conversation about gender, politics, and the unfinished work of American democracy. Our very first episode features my dear friend and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, Nikole Hannah-Jones. It's out now, so please go listen and follow the show. On top of all of this, I'm your guest host for this month of Womanica. This Black History Month, we're talking about revolutionaries, the Black women who led struggles for liberation from violent governments, colonial rulers, and enslavers. These women had the courage to imagine radically different worlds, and they used their power to try and pull those worlds into view. Today, we're talking about a woman who was a beacon of hope for her people. She took a stand against ruthless oppressors and unforgiving governments to protect the next generation. Let's talk about Aguil Chut-Deng. Aguil was born in southern Sudan in 1964 to a middle-class, multi-faith family. Aguil was a tenacious child. As a young girl, she wore a cross that her uncle had given her to her school where Islam was a required subject. When the teacher told her to take it off, she refused. Her punishment was 6 cane lashings and a call to her father. Instead of teaching her to obey authority blindly, he supported her and told her she didn't have to take it off. Aguil was her father's favorite. He saw her passion for Sudanese history and did everything he could to cultivate it. A doctor himself, he believed his daughter should be educated, though most girls Aguil's age didn't go to school. Aguil grew up surrounded by family, eating, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. But these happy times were also defined by her father's ominous warnings that a war was coming. To Aguil, a war seemed impossible, but her father was right. And as soon as the Second Sudanese Civil War broke out in 1983, he was killed. 1983 marked the beginning of a 22-year conflict between the central government and the Sudan People's Liberation Army, or the SPLA. Aguil saw millions of people killed and displaced. She saw the brutal and violent oppression of those in power. And she knew she could not stand idly by as the country and people she loved crumbled. So, Aguil joined the SPLA. Women recruits were often ridiculed, but Aguil quickly proved herself through her medical and nursing skills she'd picked up from her father. Aguil joined the SPLA's all-women battalion. There, she and the other women taught themselves how to fight. She also earned the title of Comrade Deng, a title often reserved for men. Aguil led a group of people, most of them children, into the forest to hide and escape the violence. Under Aguil's leadership, this group survived months of enemy threats, landmines, and inhospitable terrain. Aguil's main focus was always on the nation's children. By properly educating them, she believed, they could prevent history from repeating itself. They were the keys to the future. When she heard about a refugee camp across the Ethiopian border, she decided this would be the best option for the safety and education of these children. Unfortunately, conditions were dismal. Unable to support its 200,000 refugees, the camp rarely had enough supplies to go around. Aguil herself was worse for wear. One day, she felt a shooting pain in her leg. She was unable to walk. Aguil lost track of her group, and by the time she recovered, many were missing. She was eventually able to locate 12 of the 22 children she had cared for before her ailment. Aguil occasionally returned to southern Sudan to support the rebels in their fight against the government. But she was also building a life for herself at the camp, selling home-brewed beer and goods from Ethiopia's capital. Her entrepreneurial spirit inspired other women to do the same. In 1996, Aguil and her family were granted asylum in Australia, thanks to sponsorship from an NGO that she had worked with previously. They were one of the first Sudanese families in Toowoomba, where they settled. Aguil was a single mother starting over in a completely foreign country. She enrolled at the University of Southern Queensland and studied English and community development. As her English improved, Aguil began educating the Australian public on the Sudanese War and the human rights violations occurring in her home country. Aguil continued her work in Canberra, Australia's capital city. Aguil used her relocation to lobby for peace in Sudan with the help of other countries and to persuade the Australian government to accept more refugees. In 2000, she helped found the Sudanese Australian International Activist Group. Their goal was to help Sudanese refugees integrate while also still promoting Sudanese culture. Knowing how difficult it is to start over in a new place, Aguil committed herself to helping refugees get set up. She sponsored them, offered translation and interpretation services, assisted them with Social Security and health insurance, drove them to appointments, and helped them find work. When the Civil War ended in 2005, Aguil was a vocal supporter of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement. She educated others about the details of the agreement that ended the war, including the creation of South Sudan as an independent nation in 2011. As the new nation found its footing, Aguil helped it develop a referendum voting system. On April 26, 2022, Aguil left home and never returned. During her disappearance, her son posted flyers about his missing mother around Queensland. Strangers frequently came up to him to tell him they knew her. Her work had touched the lives of many. On April 30th, police found her body. She was laid to rest in South Sudan's Heroes Cemetery. In a statement following her passing, the president of South Sudan said Aguil would always be a pivotal personality in the history of our liberation. All month, we're talking about Revolutionaries. For more information, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to co-creators Jenny and Liz Kaplan for having me as a guest host. Talk to you tomorrow.